I'd like to welcome a few groups that we have here in the audience tonight. Perhaps you'd let us know where you're sitting. The Child Pornographers Association. God bless you. Wonderful work you're doing. The United Syphilis Victims. Many of the same people. The Dirty Rotten Pricks of America. That's a proud organization. And we always have quite a turnout when I'm in town. The Women Who'll Sleep with Anyone. Well, not quite as many of them as I was hoping for. Those of you girls who did show up, don't forget cast party after the show. Now, I'd also like to welcome, we have some people here tonight from some of the local homes in the area. When I say homes, I mean those kind of places where some of us, let's face it, have to be kept. The home for those who no longer feel fine and dandy. The home for those who felt all right about a year ago. And the home for those who gave a shit up until yesterday morning. And apparently we also have some people here tonight from the Center for the Visually Unpleasant. Try not to look directly at those people, unless you're equipped with the special safety glasses. Now, the only reason I mention those groups, is because those are a few of the charities that I've been working for lately. I like to mention the charities I'm interested in right here at the beginning of the show. As you know, a lot of entertainers, a lot of people in show business, they want you to know the good works they're doing. And hey, I'm no different from the others. But unfortunately for me, most of the really big charitable organizations are already spoken for. In fact, between Danny Thomas and Jerry Lewis, about 80% of the things that make you limp or tremble are taken. What it amounts to is that most of the really neat diseases are gone. So I'm forced to deal with some of these smaller organizations, such as the Salvation Navy. That's a good outfit. It's hard to get people to join, though nobody really wants to sit in a rowboat with a bass drum in his lap. Now, as long as we're in this sort of public service mood, I'd like to mention a social problem we have in this country that a lot of people don't like to talk about in public, but I think it's time we face this thing head on. It exists in a lot of families, though most people won't admit to it, and I'm talking about battered plants. It's plant beating, pure and simple. There's no way to put a nice face on it, but battered plants is part of a larger problem. As you know, the overall problem is called the battering syndrome. And we've heard mostly about battered wives, and a lot of work has been done in that direction. But then we began to hear that there were battered husbands, too. There are battered husbands. Apparently this happens when the woman is real big, the man is real small, and they each drink a quart of whiskey a day. Then we heard that there are other members of the family being abused, battered step-uncles-in-law, battered foster cousins, battered third cousins once removed. In fact, the whole idea of battered distant relatives strikes me as a little strange. To get on a bus and ride for 6 or 7 hours just to beat the shit out of someone you hardly ever see. But the problem continued to spread. Battered fiancés, battered best friends, battered total strangers, which I think indicates a short fuse, don't you? And battered blind dates, which, as many of you know, is so often completely justified. But then the problem got a little ugly, and the problem got a little strange. We began to hear about battered pets. Battered pets, that's how I felt. When I first heard of it, I couldn't believe it. I said to myself, what? And I answered, well, yes, apparently so, according to the information. I often have these little conversations with myself. I do so love good conversation. But it's true, there are battered pets. This happens when someone gets frustrated at work, comes home, beats the shit out of Fluffy. But then the problem got really sick. Then the problem, I don't know. We began to hear about battered plants. Battered plants. I couldn't believe it. I said to myself, I said, what? And I answered, well. Because this time I was speechless. But it's true, there are battered plants. And I don't mean just physical abuse. I'm not talking strictly about the physical abuse of plants. I don't mean like drop-kicking some zinnias into the next yard. I'm not talking about pistol-whipping a gardenia. I'm not even talking about stopping the car, getting out, and pissing on a bush. But I am talking about psychological torture. The mental abuse that we put plants through day in and day out. For instance, hanging plants. How do we know they aren't scared shitless up there? No wonder ivy clings. You'd cling, too, to the side of a building. So when you get home tonight, please, take a look around the house. Make sure you haven't put a plant in some corner where it doesn't want to be. And for God's sakes, never, never keep a plant in the bathroom. They hate that.